What if I told you that one of the biggest things stopping you from drawing isn't a lack of talent? It's a belief that every mark on the page has to be correct. Most of us learn to draw with a goal. We wanted to make a realistic flower, a beautiful portrait, or a perfect landscape. Somewhere along the way, drawing became less about exploration and more about getting the right result. And that's exactly why so many people stop creating. They look at a blank page and immediately start asking themselves, what should I draw? What if I mess it up? What if it looks childish? Those questions create pressure before the pencil even touches the paper. Intuitive drawing works differently. Instead of asking what you're supposed to create, it asks a much simpler question. What happens if I just begin? The single shift changes everything. Today, I want to show you how to start intuitive drawing if you've never considered yourself an artist. Because the practice isn't about making impressive artwork, it's about reconnecting with something most of us had naturally as children: curiosity. Think about the way children draw. They don't stop every 30 seconds for judge themselves. They don't compare every line to someone else's drawing. They aren't worried about posting it online. They are simply exploring. A line becomes a dragon, a circle becomes the sun, a scribble becomes an entire imaginary world. Somewhere between childhood and adulthood, many of us lost that freedom. We become focused on results, on perfection, on being good enough. Intuitive drawing invites us to remember what creating felt like before all those expectations appeared. So, let's start with the simplest possible exercise. Take a piece of paper. It doesn't matter whether it's expensive sketch paper or the back of an old notebook. Choose any pencil, pen, marker, or colored pencil. The materials don't matter nearly as much as people think. Now, pause for just a moment. Before making the first mark, notice your breathing. Feel your shoulders. Relax your jaw. Let your hand rest comfortably. There is absolutely nothing you need to achieve in the next few minutes. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're simply giving yourself permission to explore. Now, place your pencil somewhere on the page. Anywhere. Don't search for the perfect starting point. Just begin. Draw one line. Maybe it's long, maybe it's short, maybe it curves across the page. Don't decide where it should end. Simply follow your hand now at another line. Notice how your body naturally wants to move. Maybe your movements are slow and careful, maybe they're energetic. Both are perfectly fine. The goal isn't to control every mark. The goal is to pay attention. One of the fascinating things about intuitive drawing is that your hand often knows what it wants to do before your conscious mind does. That might sound strange, but creativity often begins before logic catches up. If you've ever been doodling during a phone call and suddenly notice you've created an interesting pattern without thinking about it, you've already experienced intuitive drawing. Now let's continue. And circles, small dots, loose shapes. Maybe some flowing curves, maybe sharp angles. Don't ask whether they belong together. Just keep responding to what already exists on the page. Think of it like having a conversation. Every mark is an answer to the previous one. As you draw and grow, something interesting usually happens. Your inner critic shows up. Maybe it says, "This looks weird. I have no idea what I'm doing. This doesn't even look like art." That's completely normal. In fact, I would be surprised if those thoughts didn't appear. The important thing is understanding that they're just thoughts. They don't have to become instructions. Imagine your inner critic sitting quietly in the corner of the room. You can hear it, but you don't have to hand in the pencil. Keep drawing. Something else begins to happen after a few more minutes. Your breathing slows down, your attention settles. time starts feeling different. Many artists describe this as an entire flow state. Psychologists use the word flow to describe moments when we're completely absorbed in an activity. We are no longer worrying about yesterday. We are no longer planning tomorrow. We're simply present. Intuitive drawing is one of the easiest ways to experience that feeling, not because the drawing becomes perfect, but because perfection stops being important. Now, I'd like you to experiment. Change the pressure of your pencil. Draw a line so lightly it's almost invisible. Now draw another one that's bold and dark. Fill one section with teeny details. Leave another completely empty. Notice how both spaces have value. Many beginners try to fill every corner of the page, but negative space is just as expressive as the marks themselves. Silence is important in music. Empty space is important in drawing. Now step back and look at your page. Don't ask whether it's beautiful. Ask what it feels like. Does it feel calm, energetic, chaotic, gentle, curious? Sometimes a drawing communicates emotion long before it represents an object, and that's something many people forget. Art doesn't always need to explain itself. Sometimes it simply allows us to feel. If you suddenly notice a vase emerging, or a bird, or a tree, feel free to develop it, but don't force it. Not every drawing needs to become something recognizable. Some of the most powerful abstract artwork exists because the artist trusted movement instead of planning every detail. One of my favorite ways to continue an intuitive drawing is to stop asking, "What do I want to draw next?" and instead ask, "What does the drawing want?" Maybe one area needs more texture, maybe another needs contrast, maybe everything feels balanced already. Instead of controlling the drawing, you are collaborating with it. This simple mindset removes an incredible amount of creative pressure. Here's another exercise. Turn your paper upside down. Suddenly everything looks unfamiliar. Your brain stops recognizing patterns quite so quickly. Now, continue drawing from this new perspective. You'll probably notice yourself making completely different decisions. Creativity often grows when we interrupt our habits. Another wonderful exercise is using your non dominant hand. At first, it feels awkward. The lines become shaky. Your control disappears, and strangely enough, this is often when the most interesting marks appear because you're no longer trying to be perfect. You're simply responding. That's really the secret of intuitive drawing. It's less about skill and more about attention. The more attention you give to your own curiosity, the quieter it becomes. Will every drawing be amazing? Of course not. Some drawing will feel exciting, others will feel confusing. Some you'll love, some you'll never want to see again. That's a completely normal. Professional artists create unsuccessful work all the time. The difference is that they understand every drawing is part of the process. Not every page needs to become a finished masterpiece. Some pages exist only to teach us something. Maybe today's drawing teaches patience, maybe it teaches confidence, maybe it simply reminds you how relaxing it feels to spend 20 minutes away from your phone, your emails, and your endless to do list. That's already enough. So, the next time you're sitting in front of a blank page, don't ask yourself what you're supposed to create. Start with one line, then another. Stay curious. Follow your instincts. Allow yourself to be surprised. Because creativity is something you have to force very often. It's something you simply make space for. Thank you for joining with me today. I hope this practice helped you feel a little more connected to your creativity. If it did, come back to this exercise whenever you need a quiet moment, a fresh idea, or simply a reminder that creating doesn't have to be perfect to be meaningful. Sometimes the most beautiful drawing begin with nothing more than the courage to make the very first mark.